Unfortunately, I'm not Murali. Murali couldn't be here today. He sends his apologies. He's not very well. And so I received a call the early hours of last night saying that I need to present here today. So you'll have to excuse me if you see me looking between multiple screens. It's a relatively new slide deck to me, but my name is Ben Searle. I'm the global head of channel. I've been at AppViewX for 2.5 years now, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about some digital identities and machine identities today. So, to start, there is a rising trend that's taking place. Change is happening. Machine identities and machines are becoming smarter and communicating with each other and with humans. The whole world today is run by apps, and it's run by machines, and they all have identities. And all these identities on these machines are there because they can communicate. If they don't need to communicate, they would not have an identity and essentially be a dumb terminal. But the moment the machine comes smarter, you need to identify who they are because they're talking to another machine. And traditionally, when we talk about machines, they're machines are physical, tangible devices, touchy-feely stuff. They're things that you can feel, you can physically see, you can physically interact with. Things like laptops, computers, desktop environments, servers, Wi-Fi routers, and Internet of Things. Those devices are all physical devices. When I make a call on my mobile phone, I physically have to be there. I'm at the other end of that phone saying, hello, my name's Ben. Nice to meet you. But we're moving to a world where these things are no longer going to be physical. We're moving to a world where things are virtual. What you can't see, what you can't touch, what you can't feel. And we're naming them. And that's what we call workload identities, where there could be applications, Kubernetes, containerized environments, and cloud services or virtual machines. They're not physically present, but we are creating physical and virtual creatures, which we can talk to in a specific manner. And this has complexity in a much, much different way. So I want to give you an example of what's happening, what's taking place, and what we're seeing at the moment. And this is not a car that I've personally driven. I'm not sure I'd like to either, but it's a Ford Model T. Now, this was mass-produced in 1906, this car. And arguably, it's a 95% mechanical device. There may be some electronic components, some lightings, but fundamentally, it's a mechanical device. I'm going to fast forward 100 years. Now you can see a device that's not mechanical. It's probably 90% electronic. The wheels, maybe the motor are mechanical based, but arguably its basis is run on computers, it's run on microcomputers, it's run on software. And this is probably typically representative of most of the devices that now exist within our house. If I talk about refrigerators, if I talk about washing machines, they're all connected. They're all Wi-Fi connected. They're all devices that are talking. The washing machine now knows how much I've put in it, when it's going to be dry, how long it's going to take to wash. It's predictive. It knows what's taking place, what's happening. I can go on the list of multitude of different things that exist within our homes that are connected. But what's interesting is the number of digital identities that we have is now more than twice the number of human identities. I want to take that in for a second. That means that of the 7.5, 8 billion people that are on the planet, arguably, there's 16 billion digital identities that we have out there at the moment, and that number is only going to go one way, and we all know what way it's going to go. Now, if this is the case, and we've started naming things that don't exist across these environments, like Kubernetes, like containerization environments and virtual machines, it's only going to increase exponentially. The cars being connected, the refrigerators, the washing machines being connected, all of this happened when? 10, 15 years ago? But the car, that wasn't invented 10, 15 years ago, it was invented 100 years ago. We just saw that. We saw that with the Ford Model T. So in the last 10 or 15 years, and for 90 years, the car didn't change. Maybe a few changes and tweaks here and there, but fundamentally it didn't change. So in the last 10 or 15 years, we've made this significant jump where we've added microcontrollers, Wi-Fi connectivity. There was no concept of cars talking to each other. There was no concept of cars talking to a cloud environment. But that's changed in 10 or 15 years, and it's changed dramatically. The pace of acceleration, pace of innovation, pace of digitalization is astronomical. And Gartner spoke about this, right? And they spoke about the importance of something like CLM in this environment. And they said that they've received in 2023 twice as many calls around CLM as they have around multi-factor authentication. And the main reason is that when two machines are communicating, they communicate over TLS or SSL. And when we have hybrid or multi-cloud environments, typically there's more than one CA and there's more than one trust anchor. And that brings intense focus onto the PKI and the CLM environment. And the other important aspect we definitely don't want to forget about is the Google 90 days. We know that that's coming, it's impending. They're talking about reducing validity of certificates. And we're going to touch upon that a little bit more in detail in a bit. But PKI as a technology fundamentally hasn't changed. It's not been touched for a whole lot of organizations. It's not been interacted with a whole lot of organizations. It's a legacy deployment. And that requires renewed focus because what we know is happening, what we know is taking place, it's growing at rapid scale. And the rapid requirements we've just spoken about are going to have a fundamental impact on that. And because of things like post-quantum, which we'll also touch upon in a short while, and the focus on zero trust security, we need to know what we have. We need to protect and automate for better management, better control, better security, and better crypto agility. So what are some of the key challenges we're facing at the moment? Well, the majority of organizations that we're seeing at the moment, and this is a Forrester report that we had done, have said that half of the experienced users that we went out to have experienced some form of data loss or outage or hard dollar loss because of a certificate or related certificate issue. That's 1 in 2. It's a staggering number. It's a staggering number that 1 in 2 people at the moment in today's current climate are experiencing problems, outages, application problems, some form of downtime, business, cost associated due to a certificate. One of those attacks was a SolarWinds attack. It wasn't from 2023, it was a couple of years back, but it was a major sophisticated attack. At high level, very, very high level, the code signing certificate got compromised. They used that to go into sign the software, they injected that code into the pipeline, and it got signed off. But still, 2 years after such a major attack, and let's be honest, I'm not entirely sure if anyone in this room didn't know about SolarWinds attack or hasn't read about it or heard about it, 2 years afterwards, we're still talking about 80% of certificates that are still vulnerable. Some of the future trends that we're seeing at the moment and how we're positioning these. Post-quantum cryptography. So everyone in this room, I imagine today, walked out of their house, locked their door, got into a car, potentially, drove here, got out of their car, locked their car. Some of you may have a locker here that you've personally used to store some items. Some of you may have some safes at home that are storing some of the most precious items that you can think of. I want you to imagine tomorrow you wake up, somebody somewhere, something somewhere, has the ability to create a key, and create a key that can access every single one of those environments. One single key. They can gain access to your car, they can gain access to your house, they can gain access to all your safes, your storage locker here, wherever it may be. But they wake up tomorrow and they can get that key, and they can say, I've got full access to it. No matter the lock, the key created will open it. And that's significant to what we're talking about here. Because post-quantum cryptography, the post-quantum computers that we're talking about, potentially have the ability to do that. Because of this, the industry is working on building quantum-safe cryptography. It's almost building a new lock, which the bad actors cannot make a key for. Now, the first step to this is making a lock they can't make a key for. Secondly, is replacing all the old locks with a new lock once it's ready. It's a large challenge. Think about all of the locks that you have. Think about everywhere that you know. Think about everything that you've got, all the keys that you have associated to that. I've got to make a new lock for every single one of those. Then I've got to provide you a new key to every single one of those as well. It's a significant challenge, but it's coming. It is coming. Then we have some questions. Questions that we're facing are, well, which locks do I need to change? What's the most important lock for me? Typically, I'm going to fundamentally say my front door. Probably going to say my car. What about the locks you haven't thought about? What about some of the windows? What about the back door? Our locks are safe. All of these are critical environments. And we've got to think about it. And the challenge ahead to change that, the organizational readiness, knowing what, providing a plan and the standardization across it, are all things that we have to do. And they're all representative of everything that we're talking about here. Organizational readiness, knowing what's there. Updating algorithms, making sure that I know what locks are available to me, making sure I know what locks are there that I need to replace. And then ensuring the standardization, making sure that I've got the keys, I've got the locks, I know what they are, I know what needs to take place. And then looking at Google 90 days. Well, what's the relation to this? Well, Google's trying to achieve, in saying right now, is that we cannot change the lock, but at least I can change the key for that existing lock. So that key is only going to be valid for 90 days, but at least a bad actor only has the opportunity to access that environment for 90 days until the key is then changed again. Now, it's a much shorter window than what we're at the moment, which is something around about 13 months. So this is a significant change that's coming as well. And today, if I said to you, you've got to change all of your keys, all your certificates, all your keys to those certificates and those locks within 90 days, who's ready? Who can do it? Looking around the room at blank faces. It's fine. But it's something to start bearing in mind. This is coming. This is happening. And now let's add another component to this. Let's talk about, what if your house is virtual? What if your keys are virtual, your lock's virtual? How many virtual houses have you got? Let's add another component. How much data is stored in those virtual houses? How much key data is stored in virtual houses? How much of that data would you not want to go missing? Arguably 100% of it. If it is a virtual house, is there somebody sitting in China or Russia or other countries, it doesn't have to be them too, to get into your house? Could they be sitting there waiting to get into your house? This adds another completely different complexity to the environment we're speaking about. And then we haven't even spoken about Kubernetes yet. If you want to run hardware, VM hardware, there was a limitation basically on what you could run traditionally. Right now, a new application gets deployed as a Kubernetes or containerized application, which means that every container has to talk to another container. And every application within that container has to talk to another application. This increases complexity again to the nth level. Now, on top of it, the containers, the applications are all virtual. And on top of that, they can't touch or feel it. It's not physical. Let's say this is going to be running on cloud, which means it can go from 100 users to 100 million users within the space of a very short window of time. So because of all of this, automation has to be a necessity. It has to be a necessity. So what is the path to crypto agility? What does that look like? Holistic visibility. We've spoken about the problem, we've spoken about the scale, we've spoken about the challenge of crypto. Now, how do you go about addressing that challenge? Well, the first step is knowing. I need to know what's in my environment. I need to know what exists. If I don't have visibility, if I don't know how many employees are in my organization, how am I going to identify or secure my organization, as an example? How can I even give them an ID? How can I give someone an ID if I don't know who they are? And if I don't know how many are working, how do we know how many I'm meant to supply? If that's a scenario, and in terms of machine identity, you don't even know how many machines are on the infrastructure. How many machine identities are on the infrastructure? This could be a private issue, a public issue, or self-signed certificates. If I don't know, I can't act upon it. So this is the first step. This is a critical step, knowing what exists. Then you need to discover. You need to do discovery of all the different environments, discover the number of containers, discover the number of IoT devices, the number of connected devices, and the number of certificates. This is not a small step, it's a large step, but I guarantee you the number you're thinking of is significantly larger than the number we're going to find. It's something to bear in mind. Because this, again, is a critical pathway to crypto agility, critical step. And now we need to bring that all into one place. We need to take control. We want to take control, we want to own it. So we know what we have. We know what exists. Then we can define governance. Then we can define policy. And based on policy, we can provide audit. We can provide granular control. We can provide governance and standardization and known and the unknown certificates that are there and how you want to manage it. So only first do you need to know what they are, then you take control, then you enforce governance, and then you enforce audit control. Lastly, we spoke about it. I said it was the absolute necessity. This is when you automate. Once you know what's there, you know what you need to do, you know what you want to do, you know how to enforce it, you know how to enforce policy, you know how to enforce the guardrails, put it up, stand it up, make sure it's ready, then you can automate. So that when you want to make a change tomorrow, when you want to change something, it's automatically done. It's not a case of I've got to go and do it. It's not a manual process. It's not long-winded. It's not arduous. It's not engineering time. It's automated. It's ready. It's changed. I can do it. It's good to go. And I can provision these to new devices. I can provision this to replace existing infrastructures. And then I can use APIs, automation, and protocol to manage that as well. And only then, after you've done all of those steps, will you achieve crypto agility. Now, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but this is the maturity model that I would love to talk to you about, and this details down how we can help. I'm not here to sell today, I'm here to advise. But if you've got time, please come, take some time, come and see us on the stand, come and say hello. We're here with our partner today, Trust Zone. I thank you all for your time. I look forward to meeting you.